theme for this talk. Without further ado, let us now commence this enriching session. Please welcome Dr. Vignesh Andiapan.
Right, thank you everyone. Thanks to the organizer. Good morning to the speakers, the organizers and fellow members of the audience today. As the MCs have mentioned, my name is Vignesh. You can call me Vic in short. I'm an associate professor of chemical engineering at Swinburne University of Technology, Sarawak campus. But I also have another hat. I am the deputy chair of iChemie Palm Oil Processing Special Interest Group. So today we are gathered here today to discuss a very important topic. Okay, and the topic is concerning not just you and me, but everyone living on this earth. All right, and the topic today is about tackling climate change. Today, the whole world sees the effect of climate change, from forest burnings from America to Australia, deserts advancing across Africa to Asia, rising sea levels threatening European cities, as well as the Pacific Islands as well. There is a climate crisis and we need to address it. Specifically, we need to address issues related to emissions in every sector. And then, of course, in that sense, the palm oil industry is no exception. But what we've seen over the years is that the palm oil industry has taken many important steps in implementing practices such as renewable energy, circular economy, carbon footprint reduction, and so on. So today, and I'm sure the next session as well, have a lot of talks lined up, especially for the audience here, to understand, where we are at in the palm oil industry and what the future has in store in terms of tackling climate change. So in today's event, we are very grateful to have such esteemed speakers over here, all right, who will be introduced respectively, and they will be giving their own insights and views of how the palm oil industry can move towards achieving its emission goals. I understand there are many chemical engineering students tuning into this event as well, and especially from various parts of Malaysia. And we're very happy to have you on board in this event. This will be a great chance for you, especially each and every one of you doing chemical engineering, to understand what role you will play in this important journey towards reducing emissions and tackling climate change in the palm oil industry. So aside from this, we hope that this event will help you engage with our esteemed speakers and pose some interesting and yet important questions during the Q&A session at the end today at, I believe, at 11. All right. So that's all from me. We'll like to give the floor back to the MCs and also for the speakers as well. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the event today.
Thank you, Dr. Vignesh, for your explanation of our topic today. Firstly, we have Dr. Zainab Idris, the Deputy of Director General, Research and Development at Malaysian Palm Oil Board, MPOB. So, without further ado, please welcome Dr. Zainab Idris.
All right. There's other participant sharing. Okay. Hello. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yes, all clear. We can see your slides as well.
Okay, I'm glad. All right, a very good morning to everyone, and welcome to this very eventful program that we have here, organized by POPSIG. And thank you to POPSIG for inviting me to present. Today, I would like to introduce to all the participants on the title, Sustaining the Environment through R&D and services in oil palm cultivation. So because this is we in Malaysian Palm Oil Board, we are actually entrusted to carry out research and development and also provide services to the oil palm industry so that the industry can sustain for a very long time. And all right, now let's move on to the next slide. Okay, now this is my first slide, and I think this first slide actually tells you everything about oil palm and palm oil. Right now, we divided the activities in the industry into 4 quadrants. If you look at my slide, the first quadrant is on productive. Palm oil or oil palm is a very productive plant. If you look at my this quadrant, you can see that in this graph, for producing 1 ton of palm oil, you only need 0.26 hectare of land, as compared to other oils like, for example, rapeseed, sunflower, and soya bean. It requires more than 1 hectare to produce 1 ton. Okay, now, so it is a very productive, and producing 35% of the oil, you only require 10% of the land. So the second benefit of the oil palm or palm oil is versatility. If you understand very well, oil palm or palm oil is everywhere in the product that you use every day. Actually, from the oil and also from the biomass of the oil palm. It can go into biodiesel. It can go into different biomass components, and then coming out with circular economy abundancy, in terms of the biomass. And also the palm oil can be converted into very high grade ingredients so that it can be incorporated in our food, in our skincare, in our lotions, and also in our non-food products, in other non-food products. So it is very versatile. And number 3 is viability. Okay, now when we talk about viability, our palm oil, Malaysia is actually the second largest exporter of oils and fats, and is the 5th largest world producers of oils and fats. So this is a very good indication that, our country, Malaysia, who is actually in the second place exporting the oils, we are actually producing 1.67 million hectares, planted hectares, in 2022. And also, we export our palm oil at 24.72 million tons, and it is actually 17.1% of the total global oils and fat exported, and 31.4% of global palm oil trade. So it is actually a commodity which is being exported and gaining the most economic return for Malaysia. So despite all the 3 good attributes of the palm oil, productive, versatile, and viable, we are the most controversial oils, because of the fact that it is the most versatile, the most viable, and the most productive. We are being put up as a anti-palm oil campaign, in terms of health and nutrition, environment and sustainability, and also food safety. And so in this figure, you can see that, our palm oil is actually listed under the least healthy oils. which is actually not true. All right. And also it was actually claimed that palm oil cultivation is actually causing the deforestation, which is also not the fact, not the true fact. Yeah, because you see, forest is actually rich in wood products, rich in the component which is coming out from the plant itself. Yeah, it's very rich in that particular. And why people do deforestation is because they want to get the yield from the forest. It's not because they want to plant palm oil palm. Okay. So this is actually the fact, and I think this is actually a simple overview of what is happening in the palm oil industry right now. And yeah, going back to the topic that we are going to discuss today, which I'm going to present to you, is actually, in terms of climate change. All right, what is the impact of climate change? So here in this framework, you can see that the most of the impact goes to agricultural productivity. Yeah, when climate change happen, the most the industry, the sector that is most going to be impacted is the agricultural productivity. Yeah, there are many factors that is actually impacting the agricultural productivity. As you can see in this framework, global warming will affect human health, and once we are not healthy, we cannot go to the plantation to work, so it's going to be loss of labor. And so also because of global warming, land degradation happens, ice melting down, so flood happening, and it altered the precipitation. And also when all these when climate change happen, yeah, there's biodiversity loss and ecosystem functions decrease. And so there's other also stratospheric ozone depletion, and also drought happen, pest and disease, unexpected pest and disease infection, yeah, and heat wave. So these are actually a very complex, and there's it's going to be a multiple impacts, yeah, of global warming. So and it's going to affect the crop yields. It's going to affect the price of the food, and it's going to affect mostly in the tropical region, because tropical region is the most fertile region for agricultural, and it's going to affect our crops. Yeah. So yeah, as commonly understood, poor people are the worst affected. And even though there are many technologies introduced to address this, adaptation is there, but still not enough, yeah, to address the food security and also food safety. Okay, now in terms of oil palm, yeah, climate change will have multiple effects, as I said earlier, on our oil palm yield, and it depends on a specific climatic condition at a very specific location, and also changes to pests and diseases of oil palm. These are actually among some of the reported effects, yeah, which was actually listed in this table. As you can see, rainfall and seasonality. So there is actually there is no more indication of, you cannot predict when it's going to be a heavy rainfall, when it's going to be less rainfall. So it just come and go, like, so we cannot predict specifically, yeah. temperature rising, carbon dioxide, sea levels rising, pests and disease. So this is actually the most detrimental, yeah, the pests and diseases. It changes and it create new exotic diseases and also exotic pests coming into our country. And also it affects the pollination weevil in the oil palm in plantation. Okay, now I think everyone has already, very well aware of the sustainability triangle. Yeah, we are talking about the economic, environmental, and also the social. And based on the economic, we are talking about the growth of our economy, the efficiency of how we manage our income, how we manage our expenditure, and also stabilization. And on the environmental part, actually, we are also looking at the resiliency and the biodiversity, the availability of natural resources, how we retain, and also to avoid pollution, which will give a negative environmental ecosystem. And the third one is on social. The empowerment, we have to strengthen the governance and also inclusion, and also do a consultation, yeah, with all the stakeholders, and also involve in various institutions to appreciate the values of social life. And these three components is actually integrated, yeah, in this form of a triangle. So all in all, they are actually interlinked with the climate change, yeah, and economic growth, yeah, will drive emissions that cause climate change, and climate change impacts will undermine future development prospect. So climate has severe social implications, which will worsen the poverty and equity, and it will exacerbate ongoing ecological damage, whereas environmental harm, like for example deforestation, will worsen climate. Okay, now this is actually our commitment, yeah, towards sustainability. When I say ours, is actually Malaysia's commitment lah. And we, as a world leader in sustainable palm oil production, has put in place various environmental measures while successfully uplifting the lives of rural communities through palm oil cultivation, and proving that palm oil industry is committed to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the second commitment is we voluntarily agrees to cut GHG emissions intensity by 45% by 2030 relative to emission intensity GDP in 2005 as part of its commitment to COP 21. And the third one is the Malaysian palm oil industry is now focusing on improving productivity and yield rather than expanding land. Malaysia reiterates its commitment made at the Rio Summit in 1992 to retain at least 50% of the land area under forest cover. And under the 12th Malaysian Plan, Malaysia has pledged to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And we are also establishing the National Adaptation Plan, NAP, to ensure that climate change adaptation is mainstream into its development plans. And then this is the Cabinet of Malaysia on the 22nd of March 2019 has actually endorsed the following policies towards sustainable oil palm cultivation under the Dasar Agri-Commodity Negara in 2021. And the policies are actually to cap a total oil palm cultivated area to 6.5 million hectares, and no more planting of oil palm in peatland areas, and to further strengthen regulations which regard to existing oil palm cultivation on peat. And the third one is to ban the conversion of forest reserve areas for oil palm cultivation, and to make available oil palm plantation maps for public access. All right, now this is actually the progress, of the performance, of our of forestation program in Malaysia. Just proud to actually report here that in 2021, the Global Forest Review of the World Resources Institute has reported that in 2020, our primary forest loss has actually declined in Malaysia for the 4th year in a row. So it's a good, it's a positive sign. And from 1991 to the year 2000, the deforestation rate was at 0.27%, which decreased to 0.09% for the period from 2001 to 2010. From 2010 to 2015, the deforested area increased by 2%. This is a forested area increased by 2% to 18.25 million hectares. And from 2008 to 2018, except for 2016 and 2018, all other years recorded a net gain in forest area. And there are actually many drivers of deforestation. And studies have actually shown that oil palm cultivation is not the major cause of deforestation. And recent reports indicate that livestock, soya, wood product cause more deforestation than oil palm cultivation. So more specifically, livestock is the dominant driver of deforestation, and land area occupied by livestock is 300 times more than that used for oil palm cultivation. Okay, now this is actually, I would like to highlight here a few strategies that was actually implemented by MPOB in terms of sustaining the palm oil industry. So this is a strategy for crop improvement, basically for yield and special traits. So I'm proud to say that we have actually, collected the most germplasm for the oil palm, and so we has actually in MPOB leveraged the vast germplasm collection, and also would like to highlight here that MPOB is actually the third agency that in Malaysia that obtained the recognition through the Mahathir Science Award and on the germplasm collection program. And I think the traits of interest are actually determined through consultation with industry to address their needs, to address the industry needs. And the traits such as improved yields will ensure that we can produce more from less land, right? Okay, another strategy for crop management is plantation practices. So this is actually a landscape of planting terraces, and also we grow legume to cover the crop to avoid land degradation, and also we have done various mitigation to actually control the water table level by using a wooden gate and also sandbag for oil palm cultivation on peat. And because this is very important, the water table is very important in order for us to control the GHG emission. And also there's a conventional zero burning technique. This is what we introduce to the plantation whenever they want to get rid of the old trees and do the replanting. So we avoid burning. And innovative replanting technique, where here you can see that this is where the oil palm are planted and covered by the biomasses from the when we cut down all the old trees, right? Okay, the third strategies for crop management is on nutrients cycling. And on this figure, figure A, you can see that we are using empty fruit bunch mulching under young palm and also mulching under matured palm. So we recycle the EFB, which is produced, as a byproducts from the mills. And so the next picture is actually a technique where we stack the frond that we after the pruning on the terraces and also on flat areas. This is actually also to retain the nutrient in the soil. And the third one is palm residues during planting and decomposing frond and chip trunk. And this is actually a technology that we use to actually reduce the organic waste in the palm oil mill effluent and also land for land irrigation. Okay, next is on fertilizer practices. So MPOB has actually formulated various types of, this is the range of fertilizers that we have developed and providing a balanced fertilizer formulation for the oil palm industry at various stage. And this is actually the study on the nutrient in the fertilizer samples. And the next one is integrated pest management via biological control. I think when you go into the plantation, this is a very familiar insects, and we actually is eating up all the young leaves. So we use an eco-friendly product such as insect pheromones, fruit trap, light trap, and many others to control the insects such as bagworm, rhinoceros beetle, bunch moth, and also termites. And these are actually other ongoing efforts. You can actually, if this slide is distributed to all the participants, you can go through this. And these are the other part, which is the midstream, strategies for the palm oil mill. So I'm not going to delve into detail because, the strategies in the palm oil mill can only be, can be more efficient if the upstream is being well maintained and the program is being well implemented. So basically, in the palm oil mill, it's more related to the productivity efficiency and also utilizing a circular economy concept, where we utilize all the byproducts into a value-added products. So this is more of a circular economy concept, and also taking care of the what is being emitted to the environment and also discharged into the river. So we comply with stringent regulation from the Department of Environment. So we provided optimality of technology. For example, on the biomass boiler for wood chip and rice husk, and effluent treatment system designed for lower organic load. And it is actually a high CAPEX and OPEX, and it requires expensive equipment, which is actually imported from other countries. And also we have to also consider maintenance costs, yeah. But at the end of the day, the return is still within the sustainable development goals, right? And the benefit that you will get from this high capex and opex is actually sustainability, which is a very big benefit to us, yeah, for our future generation. And also, we engage closely with stakeholders to create awareness, and we emphasize more on environment and also humanity, while also providing profit to the industry. The next one is no. This is just the framework showing that the biogas, where it can go and how it can be value added. So basically, I will skip this slide. And these are the new regulation, yeah, for biogas development, in which effective January 1st, 2014. All new mills and also existing mills which apply for expansion of throughput will be mandated to install full biogas trapping of methane avoidance facility. And we are also actually improving the regulation for biogas plants and or methane avoidance with nationwide program on the implementation for existing mills, which is still ongoing. Yeah. And perhaps this is actually just some of the commercial biogas utilization using the technology that was actually developed by MPOB. And okay, what I would like to highlight here is that on the GHG emissions and also savings, yeah, what best practices that we have done. Yeah, if you look at this chart, on the right is actually the emissions and on the left is the saving. Yeah, if you look at this chart, the bar here, the first few bars is actually the emissions, yeah, from the diesel, electricity from grid, boiler emissions, and biogas. So this is actually contributing to the emissions. But if we do a biogas capture, you can actually see the savings here, yeah, on the left side of this graph. So it goes the same with the PKS and also EFB. All right. Okay, now we are also proud to highlight here that we have actually worked together with Felda Pump Industries Sdn Bhd, Sime Darby Offshore Engineering Sdn Bhd, to come up with this world's first bio-CNG commercial plant, yeah, from our palm oil mill effluent, and it is actually located in Felda Sungai Tengi Palm Oil Mill. With a production capacity of 400 metric tons per hour for the bio-CNG, which is equivalent to 80,000 MMBTU for industrial users. Okay, I will skip this one because I think Mr. Tan will be talking about this also. And okay, now skip this one also. And okay, now I'm sorry because I actually I believe that Oscar was asking me to provide this icon into each of my slide, but I have actually worked this out, and because I feel that the sustainability goal is not dedicated for one pillars, yeah. It is actually integrated and also integrated and connected. And it seems that for the environmental, yeah, these are the SDGs, yeah, SDGs number 6, number 7, 14, 13, 12, and 15. And this is regarding the environmental LCA. And if we are talking about the social LCA, it is related to SDG number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 6, number 8, 11, 12, and 15. And on the economic part is the life cycle costing, which is related to SDG number 8, 12, and 17. And yeah, it's all interrelated and integrated, and all these three overlaps into a sustainability. Okay. All right. Now, all in all, I would like to sum up the sustainability on the presentation that I presented just now. It is actually a holistic program, yeah, balancing all the three components, all the three pillars of sustainability. It's pragmatic approach in developing sustainability requirements, inclusiveness in development of sustainability requirements, smart public-private partnerships with all stakeholders, and assurance that conservation and development are complementary objectives. All right, this is actually my last slide, and I wish to say thank you to everyone for your attention, and I would like to invite you to our next event, POPSIG 2023, which is to be held on the 7th to 9th November 2023. That is this year in Kuala Lumpur Convention Center. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Zainab, for the insightful discussion. Next, we are honored to have Mr. Benjamin Loh, Sustainable Market Program Lead at World Wildlife Fund, WWF Malaysia. Mr. Benjamin Loh, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Iskandar. And also good morning, everyone. And thank you, ICAME and also POPSIG for inviting me to this event. I am very happy to be here, and also good morning and to all of you. So just share my screen to have my presentation on. So let's see if we can put it on full screen. Okay, so just a little bit about WWF before we start. Of course, I think everyone knows that we are a conservation organization, NGO here in Malaysia, and we work very specifically on wildlife conservation as well. But we also do other things like, for example, palm oil, which is sort of a major commodity in Malaysia, and we work towards trying to achieve better sustainability for palm oil. Not just palm oil, but also other commodities like timber and also plastics, for example, to actually thrive and strive towards more sustainable outcomes for these commodities within Malaysia, and also how to achieve better approaches for sustainability in a wider context within a global perspective as well. So today I'm going to give you a very brief background. I've been asked to keep this short by the organizers about securing our net zero pathways for Malaysia. Now, this is a very brief update based on the latest BUR4. So BUR means Biennial Update Report from Malaysia to the UNFCCC about our activities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and inventory, and also our pathways towards achieving net zero for this approach. So the national inventory was updated in 2019. Previously, it was 2016. Now, this was a while ago, so a lot of things have changed. A lot of information has been updated based on our activities and also the things that we need to achieve. Historically, the GHG inventory represented in BUR has been revised and enhanced based on more recent data and availability of those data in Malaysia. So things like land use change, things like enhanced green technology and green implementations, all these are taken into account in the most latest BUR identification and BUR data. On the report, just to be clear, it was actually submitted in December 2022, but the information and data was up to 2019. That's how much we can actually get that's most up to date. The data outline plans for continuous improvement of GHG inventory and measures within Malaysia, and how that relates to achieving net zero, and how that achieves towards achieving our goals for the UNFCCC climate change improvements as well. Also, the data defines a working structure for the government and also for the reporting to the UNFCCC on how to implement these enhancements and also work on increasing mitigation activities within the government and also within the sectors that's reporting to this. Okay, I will skip through some of these slides, so don't worry about it. If you need, I think later we can share the information with you guys, because a little bit this information is quite technical. I'm not really an expert in greenhouse gas emissions, but I'll try my best to give as much clear information as possible. So in the latest BUR, Malaysia obviously needs to decarbonize key sectors and also preserve carbon sinks in order to achieve net zero. That was the main message from this latest BUR. And I think the major removals comes in sort of land use and land use change initiatives. And this has a lot of things to do with like agriculture, and also later when I explain further, there's an aspect of development that we need to address as well within this context of emissions, and also land development as well for Malaysia. Okay. Other sectors as well, in terms of based on what we have reported. So in last year, WWF also came up with and also BCG came out with a report based on the BUR report, reporting in the previous years, and we actually mapped out in terms of how the emissions is doing and how we can improve those emissions over time. So these two graphs basically shows that comparison between the previous emission reports and what's happening further. What I can do is share with you the report. It's actually a very seminal report. It's about 60 over pages for you to understand a little bit more about how these specific sectors contribute towards reduction of GHG emissions within our planned context for the country as well. Okay, so basically the major component within the BUR4 is land use change emissions, primarily caused from conversions to settlements. This is more towards the development of Malaysia as a country, because we are still a developing country. A lot of our land is actually being used for urban development, for housing, and so on and so forth. Now, this is a major contribution right now to GHG emissions in Malaysia. And proper planning and proper development of urban areas and also rural areas to achieve urbanization needs to be developed in a more comprehensive measure. Unfortunately, due to mega development projects in the 11 Malaysian Plan, mainly in Sabah and Sarawak, this has caused a major downtrend in our land use change emissions. And I think that's something that we need to understand, and also to contemplate within a wider context of how our country is developing and also moving forward. So not really a palm oil issue, but more on how we manage our society and also the development of communities within a wider context. If you're looking at urbanizing places like Sabah and Sarawak to achieve our development goals, then there is a risk factor towards increasing our greenhouse gas emissions. I think when not just within a land use context, but within sort of transport, within industry as well, because this with more urban migration and more urban development, there needs to be more supplementary developments in terms of like industry, in terms of like housing, to actually support urbanization and urban development within these places as well. So places like Sabah and Sarawak, I think, and also other rural areas in Malaysia, it's very important to understand that balance of development and how Malaysia would like to see ourselves within the next few years, and how that improves our greenhouse gas emissions as well, because it is a catch-22, so a win-lose situation. If we do decide to expand Malaysia as a developed or more urbanized nation, then we will actually suffer a lot in terms of our GHG emissions. I won't go through the historic data a bit more. This is a bit more sort of understanding the comparisons between there. What I would do is I will just quickly show you sort of like the context of how this new report also puts everything into. So very specifically how we are addressing the issues of climate change, and also how we are trying to move towards net zero within this working group's approach. So in Malaysia, this is how it's structured. We can sort of understand how the climate change committees are in place, and where are we working towards improving inventory, mitigation, vulnerability, and also financing. That's very important in these sectors to actually improve our GHG outputs. So all this is actually very well planned by the government. It's just that how we're implementing it, which is the issue. This graph is actually very good. It shows our pathways towards net zero. So previously, there is a very different trajectory for BUR3, and now BUR4, the trajectory is a little bit different. So it's a little bit higher. But what we have managed to do within within this BUR is to actually flatten the emissions. So as you can see, there are a lot of sort of emissions factors that goes in that sort of makes it a bit more risky and unreliable when it comes towards our goals. But the benefit is to flatten it, is actually to have a better understanding on how these emissions are put in place and how we can tackle these emissions. So that is one of the major points. Low carbon ambitions focus on areas where economically active and mainstream levels. So understanding where these economic activities are supporting development and focusing low carbon ambitions within these economic activities. For example, urban development, for example, transport development as a major point. So things like electrifying our vehicles and so on and so forth. So these are high economic areas that we need to focus for lowering carbon emissions for it. Optimizing pathways to achieve net zero 2050 is with stronger green policies and technology push and investment. That is something I think that is also working towards, Malaysia is working towards. Just now, we heard from the previous speaker that there are a lot of activities within the palm oil industry to actually try to introduce green policies, green technology, and also introduce more green investment towards within that industry to achieve net zero. But I think the major point here that we need to understand is how these industries actually correlate or work together to achieve this net zero ambition. Because we need to understand how, for example, the palm oil industry is working, for example, with the transport industry, or for example, with the steel industry, or for example, with tourism industry. All these industries need to come together to understand their specific approaches and their specific goals towards achieving this net zero output, because we cannot just rely on one industry to achieve it. So we can't just say, okay, palm oil industry, let's go, you guys work for on net zero while the rest just pollutes and improve. So I think that needs to be a very strategic approach for the government to actually understand how specific industries and specific contributors towards GHG works together in achieving this trajectory for zero pathways. I think that's very important to take away from this. And also we need to maximize the amount of decarbonization with all available technological feasibilities and abatement technologies as well, because that's very important. The palm oil industry is a very traditional industry. We've been working very much the same way for the past 100 years. How are we introducing more carbon-friendly technologies? How are we introducing approaches towards enhancing our GHG emission? That I think it needs to be further developed, not just within the industry, but also within the technological approach. So like students and universities need to have enhanced research and study on how to develop these technologies for different industries to achieve net zero pathways. Again, I think when the previous speaker was starting, it's actually a shared responsibility for everyone. That it's not just a palm oil. So industry focus, it needs to be a sort of Malaysia-wide multiple industry-wide approach for us to achieve net zero as well. I won't go through these particular slides, but it does show again different variables between BUR3 and BUR4, and also sort of financial implications on that as well. If you like, if you have any questions on this, please share with me, and I can try my best to answer you or give you specific directions to answer your questions. But I won't go through this in detail because of time constraints as well. Just some key takeaways before I end my presentation. Again, increased focus on sustainable infrastructure, because large infrastructure projects that we have previously, we want to build huge dams, you want to build railways, and things like that. Those have major impacts towards greenhouse gas emissions. How those infrastructure developments can reduce their emissions have to do with more sustainable infrastructure development. retention of land use change as key removal sources. So try, again, develop understanding how this sector can be decarbonized, whether it's energy transport and how that works within the wider context of things, how I mentioned before in terms of development and so on. Net zero is still achievable, but it needs to be sort of within that sort of comparison factors within peers. And we have to understand that we need to be agile. We need to be able to adapt within the different pathways to achieve GHG neutrality and GHG inventory that's continuously evolving, and the data keeps changing. So what we know today might be very different from what we know in the next 5 or 10 years, because in terms of emissions removals and emissions reductions, and also policies within the government might change as well. That would improve or might make worse our situations for GHG and net zero approaches. I think that needs to be understand, and we need to be able to adapt to these dynamic changes within our approach towards net zero as well. So that's all for me. Thank you very much. If you do have any questions, I'm later happy to answer. Back to you, Iskandar.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Benjamin. Joining with us also from the Malaysian Palm Oil Certification Council, MPOCC, is Mr. Tan Chee Yong, Manager of Technical Outreach and Extension Service Unit at MPOCC. Without further ado, we will invite Mr. Tan Chee Yong to start their talk.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Okay, thank you to POPSIG for inviting me. So let me share my slide first. Okay. Good morning, everyone again. Now, I'm Tan from Malaysia Palm Oil Certification Council. Okay, today I want to share about the role of certification in climate change. Okay, so first of all, let's look at here. Okay, on the on the IPCC, okay, Intergovernmental on Climate Change report highlighting that in the last 50 years that we have do a lot of irreversible damage, okay, to the environment. Okay, so the report stressed that there's a aggressive need to reduce carbon emissions. Okay, it's crucial of the order of human to survive. So lastly, they estimated that to transition to a low carbon and climate resilience economy, at least $60 trillion are needed. So this is one of the so-called urgency we need talking about climate change. Okay, so how we go on that? Okay, so knowing what's the solution, example. So a lot of so-called discussion, debate, but roughly can just categorize it to this simple few. Okay, so I think first in the agenda we're talking about how to end our reliance. Okay, not talking about stopping usage of fossil fuel, but ending our reliance to fossil fuel. This means we look at when we talking about alternative energy. Okay, instead of depending on the fossil fuel, that is contributing a lot to the climate changes nowadays. So for this, okay, we're looking at other so-called resources. Okay, other type of fuel that can be more sustainable. Okay, another thing talking about greater energy efficiency. This is where we can say that we try to so-called invest in technology that looking at how to make production of energy more efficient. Okay, the third, we look at renewable energy sources. So in here you can see the one that always they mentioned will be like solar, wind energy, which doesn't depend on fossil fuel. The next one will be sustainability in transportation, because transportation contribute a lot to the carbon dioxide, okay, emission. So in here we're talking about how to replace some of the fuel inside transportation, or using a better model of transportation to reduce all the GHG emission. Then now it's sustainable building. This is not very well known, but it's saying that country already developed with development come with infrastructure expansion. So these will replace forests. So when we go for this kind of development, we will think about how to have a mechanism to build something, or to build an area that is very sustainable. Then we also have what we call better forestry management and sustainable agriculture. So this more related to palm oil, because we are considering agriculture, commodities, where we must implement sustainability so to contribute to the reduction of the climate change. Then conservation-based solution. This is talking about how to conserve. So in here, talking about prevent deforestation or how to reforest back our land. So this is about very general solution they have been debated around. So how about palm oil? Palm oil. Now, palm oil, we can look at 4 areas to get renewable energy. As you know, palm oil is a biomass producer. When we so-called palm oil palm, and also we process palm oil itself, we get a lot of byproduct, and majorly is biomass. So look at this, a biomass, chemical renewable energy. Just now said by maybe Dr. Zainab, where the biomass can go to a lot of places, we can have methane trap, to generate electricity. Then we also can use our biomass to become a pellet for energy also. So this can contribute to renewable energy, to tackle the climate change. But again, biomass is quite debatable, because certain sector or certain segment of society or research is saying that biomass is not really so-called reduce carbon emissions. But this is all in research. Then sustainability in transportation, example, in Malaysia, we have so-called the biofuel program. So what I mean, like we are replacing some of our fossil fuel with fuel that can be renewable, they can be produced back. So this is one how palm oil can contribute to climate change used through biofuel. Then sustainable agriculture, here in Malaysia, we have a certification called MSPO, Malaysia Sustainable Palm Oil Certification. This is to make sure that the oil palm and palm oil operator practice or adhere to certain sustainability practices, to make sure the palm oil produced are sustainable in terms of environment, social, and governance. Now, concept-based solution, how palm oil can contribute. Simple as we can conserve area. Example, a palm oil, oil palm estate, they can contribute by having certain conservation of the area. Now, when palm oil are developed on a piece of land, the land can be plain land, it can be land with certain geographical features. So by having estates or company doing certain assessment on the land before developing it, then they can come up with certain management. Example will be HCV, high concept value. If you do certain assessment on that, the assessment will give some advices on how to develop land, and preventing area that is high value to conserve from develop. So when power sector conserved area is considered contribution, because instead of just bulldoze and plant in the whole area, you select a few areas that is important and conserve it. Example. Okay, now why certification? Why certification? Now in certification, we're talking about third-party audit. Now the third-party audit, why you need that? Because a company can claim that they're doing a lot of things, conservation, good practices, everything. But again, the buyers or the end user, they need to have so-called validation and verification of the claim. So auditing is considered a very disciplined, rigorous effort to verify facts about a certain business. Okay, in here, certification make sure that what you claim are true. Example, some company claim that they conserve the area, they practice good environment practices to make sure environment doesn't have pollution. This must be verified. So normally, organization try to undertake a third-party audit so to achieve certification, to give a claim, and also to give so-called credibility on what they claim on. Okay. For example, EU, they have a carbon removal certification, okay, because they need a third party to verify on their behalf on the claim by certain companies. So again, another thing is talking about certification will prove impartiality and credibility of the business practices. So this is why we need certification. Okay, or how to say, certification can help in terms of so-called verification validity of the climate change. Okay, this is a simple set of MSPO. Now, because I just give about 10 minutes, so I just concise on my presentation. So for MSPO, we are a third party certification. We talk about sustainability. Okay, so in a certification, how it works is that it must have a three component. First of all, you must have a requirement, okay, which to be met by a company and to be audited. Normally, the standard is developed by a large stakeholder consultation, where different sector, different stakeholder will come with agreement on what type of requirement needed, okay, for the entity to claim certain thing. In here, MSPO we will claim about sustainability. Then we must have a system where define how the scheme operate, how the implementation are done, okay, especially we have agreement with the third-party auditor, okay, to make sure that they can provide auditing service impartially and there's a credibility on the claim. Last one, we have accreditation program. Okay, in here, it means entity to ensure that organization or auditor they undertake audit credible and have competence auditors to do the job. Okay, so this is the program of MSPO. Okay, now I'm not saying that MSPO can so-called solve climate change or MSPO can so-called prove how palm oil can tackle climate change. But with the new standard coming out, MSPO new standard MSPO 2022, we're gonna have more new elements, which can contribute to tackling of the climate change. One of them is we incorporated a high considered value assessment, in MSPO. Now, for this, why this I would say this is why conservation-based effort, where palm oil, oil palm estate or growers need to go through this assessment. Now, the assessment will help in terms of how they actually identify certain area that need to conserve. This will, in the end, if the report come out, it will contribute, saying that certain area are conserved, or say that or reforestation or rehabilitation of certain area is needed. Then also for MSPO, we come up with a new planting cut-off date of 31 December 2019. Now, how it contribute to climate change? One is that we prevent opening up of new land in the forest area. Okay, as you know, agriculture. We talk about climate change. Agriculture will always we mentioned that the one that contribute to climate change because of changing conversion of land from forest area, which is considered carbon sink, to agriculture. Even just now, even development, we consider a contribution to climate change because they change the land use area of the place from maybe a carbon sink, a forest, to other thing can be a housing area. In palm oil here, they will say that palm oil is destroying the forest because of the expansion of the development. So by having these criteria, at least you can say that palm oil sector emission stopped contributing to deforestation. Then for MSPO, we have another one is we implement a new greenhouse gas calculators. In climate change, again, talking about GHG emissions. Here we have we need to identify with palm oil what type of emissions have been coming out from them. So with this calculator, we can determine the emission of each sector or each players From that, then we can do, for say, how to reduce the emission. It can be through practice, okay, or through other type of method. But if this work, it will capture by the audit, okay, and it can be reported. Since it's a third party, it can be verified. Okay. So that's why, in terms of climate change, yes, we can say that we can contribute. Okay, in the end, okay, but the proof in the pudding. I mean, you must have some verification happening. So this how situation help. Okay, in terms of this claim. But for MSPO, currently we are moving toward that. Okay, as you can see, we have new elements here. We don't say we contribute in technical climate change, but we are preparing the base of it. So that's all from my presentation. A bit simplified because talking about more to the role of certification instead of MSPO. But later on, you can ask more questions. I'll try to answer it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tan Chi Yong, for your sharing session. Next, our first speaker is Ms. Aiman Najati Akmal Rahman, Senior Manager at Sime Darby All's SDO Biodiesel Senior Berhad. Without further ado, Dr. Aiman, you may start your session now.
Thank you, Iskandar. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Aiman from Sime Darby All's Biodiesel, and today I want to talk about some of our initiative at group level, where we do this palm-based renewable fuel circularity initiatives. Okay. So at Sime Darby Plantation, we are the world's largest producer of certified sustainable palm oil. We have an integrated palm oil value chain that spans through our upstream to our downstream entities, Sime Darby Oils, to provide superior quality oils and products serving our customer around the world. Most of you must be very familiar with the palm oil industry, but let me take you to our SDP group palm oil value chain. Okay, here we start with our upstream, the plantation, where we palm our palm oil trees and produce a fresh fruit bunch. And we actually have a total of 239 estates in Malaysia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and Solomon Island. This fresh fruit bunch is then transported to nearby mills, where we process this fresh fruit bunch into crude palm oils. And we actually have 70 mills in these countries. And then further downstream, we have our Sime Darby Oils entities with their facilities available in 12 countries. The facilities ranges, we have 11 vegetable oil refineries. We have 7 crushing plants and 1 biodiesel plant located in Pulau Keri, Selangor. And moving further to our customers, our customers range from food manufacturers, restaurant, food preparers, public consumers like you who use our cooking oil. These are our customers and consumers who consume our edible oils and specialty fats. But we also have customers that use our non-edible products. They come from oleochemicals manufacturers, petroleum companies that use that blend our biodiesel with their petroleum diesel, and also the public that use our blended biodiesel. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, at Sime Darby Plantation, we are committed to drive responsible production and align with our sustainability goal. one of our key focus area is actually on climate action. And there are various efforts that we do at group level throughout our value chain on this climate action, which include supplier engagement, land use transformation, climate risk assessment, carbon reduction, among others. But today, what I want to give a focus to is actually around my area of specialization, which is the waste management, where we turn this waste management and produce renewable energy. Okay. And let's go through further on this circularity initiative. We call this initiative as waste to value. And to understand this further, actually, these waste are waste oils in the form of fats or lipids that can be utilized as a feedstock to our biodiesel plant and being converted into biodiesel. And let me bring you through from where is the source of waste generated in our value chain, so that we can understand further. Okay, so at upstream level, the first waste that generated here is actually coming from the palm oil mill effluent. And actually in our palm oil mills, when we process fresh fruit bunch into crude palm oil, we use steam, we use water, for example, to sterilize our FFB, and this residual water become an effluent. And this effluent, as you can see from, I think, from Dr. Zainab's presentation also, it has organic matters and it also has some residual oils. Okay, what we do is that we try our best to extract this residual oil so that it can be a feedstock to our biodiesel plant. Okay, and at the palm oil mill itself, another type of waste that is generated is the empty fruit bunch. Okay, after the fresh fruit bunch being processed, we will be left with empty fruit bunch. But actually, this empty fruit bunch, we still have a residual amount of oil. And some of our mills are actually equipped with the facility to further extract this remaining oil from this EFB. This EFB oil may not be suitable for human consumption, but it is still suitable as a feedstock to our biodiesel plant. Okay, and moving further to our downstream entities, our refineries that produce oils and also fats. In these processes, we have heating of the oil, we have degumming, we have bleaching, we have filtration, and also deodorization. We use bleaching earth as at one of our unit operation. This bleaching earth is used to actually extract the impurities to refine the oil further. And after this process is completed, it becomes spent bleaching earth. We have external parties that collect this spent bleaching earth. They bring it to their own facilities, their own extraction plant, and to extract the remaining oils that can still be found at this in the spent bleaching earth. And this SBE oil can also be a feedstock to our biodiesel plant. Okay, and moving further, definitely to our customers, to our consumers, especially for those that consume our cooking oils, our fats for their our oils and fats for their food manufacturing. After using this oil for frying, for food preparation, we have this waste oil, we have this used cooking oil, and nowadays what we can do is that these used cooking oils can be recycled, can be collected, and recycled back and be used into our biodiesel plant as a feedstock. Okay, and these are four sources that we can identify and then we can extract the oil. It is in the lipid form, it's still in the form of triglycerides or fatty acids, and it become a good source for us to be used as feedstock at our biodiesel plant. What we do with this oil is that we aggregate them, we transport them to our biodiesel plant. It is then being pre-treated, because usually these waste oils, they have higher amount of impurities, they have dirt, and they have water in it. So we have to pre-treat this oil, remove the FFA, and it is being converted into methyl ester using either trans-esterification process or esterification process at our biodiesel plant. And the resulting product are waste-based biodiesel, which have a lower life cycle GHG emission to be used as biodiesel for our transportation use or for our industrial use. Okay. And this is only one small initiative actually, that part of the waste management initiative, the building blocks of waste management initiative that we have at Darby Plantation. There are of course other initiatives such as biogas, the using of solar panels and others at our group level. Okay. So what we can contribute from this type of initiative is that, number one, this waste biodiesel will form as a part of a basket of energy option alongside with other greener fuel like wind energy, like bioethanol, and also like solar energy and others. And it is one of the energy green and renewable energy initiative. Okay, and in terms of economics, we would also be, it is a circular economy that is available. I mean, that is something that we can do in our own group of company, our palm oil industry, where it also generate revenue. So we turn this waste into a valuable products that create a revenue to our group of companies. Okay, and by minimizing waste, by aggregating and managing this waste at source, we would also be able to reduce the cost of waste treatment and disposal. And at a public level, the environment impact, for example, if you recycle the used cooking oil, rather than throwing it or discarding it into the kitchen sink, into our sewage system, it avoid improper disposal that may pollute environment, and also avoid domestic issue. For example, at the longer run, it may clog your drains and others. Okay. But these initiatives are not without challenges. We face several challenges in implementing this initiative, but of course we try our best to overcome these challenges, working with the various stakeholders of our companies. Okay, for example, these waste oils actually have wide quality variation, the FFA range, the impurities, they have high amount of impurities. Therefore, it requires flexibility in processing technology. And this flexibility sometimes leads to comparing with the first generation of biodiesel, the investment cost is a little bit higher. And due to the nature of this waste oil, we have to remove impurities, we have to remove the water, so it has a lower yield compared to the normal vegetable oil biodiesel or even the normal palm biodiesel, and due to that it has a slightly higher conversion cost. Okay, the second one is a typical challenge that biodiesel face. We have a blend wall. So comparing with maybe HVO, which is a drop-in fuel, drop-in diesel, we do have this limit of blending. So, but in Malaysia itself, we have various we have government industries and also MPOB. We have our MBA in cooperating with various research agencies, and we can see that we start with B5 blending, B10 blending, and now we are now at B20. And this also give an assurance to automotive manufacturers to upgrade their vehicles to suit the usage of biodiesel. Okay, and at supply chain level, because some of these waste oils comes in a very small batches, small portion. So sometimes we do face challenge in logistic capability, aggregating and collecting the small batches of waste oil, for example, UCO from restaurant, from the public and all. So what we do is that to improve this logistic, we sometimes work with external parties to collect this oil, and we also do proportional campaigns to the public to increase the awareness. Okay, and last but not least, some potential issues that we face in production on the technology itself is that because waste oils are usually dark in colors, usually their physical appearance is darker than normal palm oil. For example, it is sometimes quite difficult to distinguish or identify if there is any adulteration, for example, from other non-fat or non-lipid liquid. For example, they use lubricant. So what happens is that if there are residue of this, there are adulteration of this petroleum lubricant, it may lead to processing issue. We couldn't get the desired parameters at plant, and potentially it may also lead to process safety issues. So that's all I have for today, as explaining some of the initiative that we have under Sime Darby Oils and Sime Darby Plantation as a group. SDP as a group has committed to achieve net zero emission across our value chain by 2050. And these are some of our initiatives that we implement in our way, in our journey to achieve that. Okay, so thank you from me, and I pass it back to our MC. Thank you.
Right, so I thank you very much, Ms. Simon, for the presentation. So I believe this is the time where we kickstart the discussion forum over here. So I'd like to invite all our esteemed speakers to turn on their videos, video feed at least, all right, your cameras, just to, say hello again to the audience. And so all the speakers today have shared very interesting insights from their perspective and their experience as well, related to the palm oil industry and how it's tackling climate change. And I'm sure you've all gained some interesting new understanding, new knowledge from them. But I'm sure there are some questions as well. We see a lot of questions being posted in our Slido app over here. And at the same time, if you have any further questions, or in fact, if you don't have any questions, you can log on to the link and vote those questions, okay? So, so that we know which is more popular, then, I can take that questions as high priority, all right, if it's more popular, all right? But in the meantime, what I'll do next is slowly start to invite our speakers to, give their views on some questions, and then from there, we'll carry on with the discussion. So we have a question here that is, I think probably it's right at the very bottom. It says we have I'd like to get Mr. Tan and also later Benjamin as well to weigh in on this topic as well. We have a shortfall on palm oil globally because of the approach we take related to the plantation limitation. So do downstream sectors encounter supply chain issues? So I'd like to invite Mr. Tan, maybe you can give your thoughts on this, because you're doing certification, you're looking at the larger scale of things. Also, you're looking at, the supply chain as a whole. So maybe you can give us your view on this then. Also from WWF's perspective, Benjamin, we'd like to get you to weigh in on this as well. Right, so go ahead, Mr. Tan, over to you.
Okay, question talking about the current situation. Does the current situation stress the supply chain at the downstream? Is it correct what I'm interpreting?
The question is, we have a shortfall on palm oil globally because of the plantation limitation. So I'm guessing because we are limiting the expansion of plantations. So sooner or later, when the rise in demand comes, then there's the disconnect there. At least that's the question, right? And does the downstream sectors also get affected because of that? So what's your view on that?
My view, okay. First of all, I can say that 80% of Malaysia palm oil are exported out of to other country. Okay, so in terms of so-called local consumption, we can cover by ourselves. Okay, it's just that most of them is more to export because it's a commodity. Okay, another thing I want to say about reiterate Dr. Zainab effort, saying that we, instead of looking at expansion, we must look at increasing productivity. Okay, because increased productivity also considered a sustainability approach. Why? Because you can use limited land area to produce more. So that this is what we must look at. Okay, so they more toward in terms of research, development, and commercialization. That time. So for MPOCC, what happens is that yes, I mean we have the supply chain there. Okay, so what happens is that if ever we can take all palm oil going out from Malaysia to be certified and to be claim certified, then maybe MPOCC will have the data. So after that, we will share the data normally with MPOB and also the government involved. So if this happens, then we can have a so-called a way of looking at how to gauge, okay, like the planning. Even though we limited our land area, and we by having other initiatives like productivity or talking about how to plan the resources, the supply chain going well, they will be good. But currently, I don't think there's a pressure or stress to our so-called downstream player in terms of limiting the cultivation area of oil palm. Okay, instead, you're looking at if you talk about locally, it should be no problem. It's just that talking about business, maybe. Okay, maybe you say, oh, they need more raw material, they need more oil palm to be processed to be sold. Okay? But this is more toward the business arrangement. So in terms of looking at the whole ecosystem itself, currently Malaysia are self-sustained in terms of their own local usage, and we are contributing a lot, okay, to the so-called food security to other countries. Okay, so we should look at another way. Instead of talking about limitation, we are talking about how we take next step, how we advance ourselves, how we make us more productive. This I can share. So maybe then back to you, Dr. Vinesh.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Mr. Tan. I think one of the key things you mentioned is about not looking at it from a limitation point of view, but how to improve the sustainability aspect behind it. I think since you mentioned about cultivation as well and the productivity, I'll bring Dr. Zainab in later on as well to weigh in a little bit on this, to just share a bit on what is currently being done in this as well. Because when you have an expansion limitation, you can look at other aspects such as improving the efficiency of the productivity of the plant as well as the crop itself. So that itself means that the higher efficiency means you need less land. So, so that certainly is a good approach. And another thing you mentioned also is the importance of supply chain planning. I think that's a very important point. Mr. Benjamin, would you like to weigh in from your perspective in WWF?
Thanks, Vic. Yes, I think shortfall is good because like what Mr. Tan said, we are a very niche sort of palm oil market. So Malaysia grows about 18 million tons of palm oil a year. That's really nowhere compared to what Indonesia is producing. Indonesia is producing easily 3 or 4 times more palm oil. So we are producing 18. Indonesia could be like almost 40 million tons of palm oil. It's really mind-boggling how they are producing palm oil, and also how our palm oil is appearing towards the market as well, because we are an export product. 80% of our palm oil is exported. So I think that is where sort of markets come in, and also financing come in, where we need to understand the flexibility and also the limitations of finance and markets. Because if we do have the very niche point of sustainability within Malaysia, so that has a very unique appeal towards different markets, like for example Europe or America, for example. But of course, China and India is very different as well. So I think that also needs to understand how we do business in the world, and how Malaysian palm oil fills that gap and niche between what we're doing internally and also externally, mainly externally for Malaysia in that wider context.
All right, thanks, Mr. Benjamin, for that. Dr. Zainab, since we've also mentioned about research on cultivation and increasing productivity, do you have any insights on that? Like I know MPOB is looking into this area, especially into R&D and trying to improve the productivity. Maybe you can share a bit of your experience in this area.
Okay, thank you, Vid. All right, now, if you are talking about the shortfall of palm oil in terms of plantation area, limited plantation area, yeah. Okay, and whether downstream sector is affected. All right, now, I'm not sure how I should put this into perspective, yeah. But like Mr. Tan was saying, it is actually in terms of downstream sector, for domestic production, there will be no issue in terms of going downstream if we retain our CPO in the country for downstream purposes. And also we have lots and lots of biomass available, yeah. So this is actually an opportunity for us to go into downstream and providing value addition. So I purposely use the word biomass and also maybe byproducts. Yeah, I'm not going to use waste, because I don't consider this as waste, because there's value in all this, and it's just like we have to motivate our industry to go into downstream, okay, rather than just depending so much on on the plantation area, right? So, and also I would like to share with you, yeah, on some of MPOB R&D in terms of so because we have a dedicated focus area looking at yield performance, yeah. So under this focus area, we have several programs to actually manage and control and producing advanced planting material. And I think we are going to announce a few in our upcoming transfer of technology. So you can actually browse our website later in the transfer of technology 2023. So you can see the technology that is available to improve yield performance in terms of getting new planting material. And also we have a few technology which is a technology that cater the downstream sector for value addition purposes. Yeah. So I think this is actually can be incorporated into the sustainable development goal, which will comply with all the three pillars: the environment, the social, and also the economic. I think that's the comment from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Zainab. All right, so I think we've spent some time on that question. We can move on to the next question here. We would like to get Ms. Aiman in for her views on from the practitioner standpoint, from people that deal with technology as well as the operations as well. There's one question directly in front of us here. It says, yes, I think the CAPEX for sustainable technology is high and the ROI is also big. What does the company earn from sustainable practices? I guess the question is more towards like, if you just look at sustainable technologies and practices, like, how does a company view this? And, how can they earn something, and what do they earn from, this kind of practices? Maybe from your experience in Sime Darby, Ms. Aiman, would you like to share with us your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thank you, Vignesh. Okay. Yeah, in terms of of course, in terms of sustainable practices, there are some investment that we need to do. For example, to improve the technologies in innovation and all. But when we are tackling this, especially SDG goals, climate change initiative, we have to look at it in a holistic perspective. And for example, at Darby Plantation, our initiative span across our value chain, starting from a supplier, the land use, planting, processing, and all. And along this various way, there are sustainability practices that we do, such as energy efficiency in processing, waste management, renewable energy, and others. This initiative actually does not also contribute to climate change, but in return, it will also improve your energy efficiency, minimize your waste disposal costs, improve your financial savings and operational efficiencies. And for example, at a higher maybe some of those sustainable practices that relates to SDG goals, it can also generate growth from opportunity of revenue creation. We can also do differentiation through innovation. We improve the resilience of our supply chain by implementing transparency, working and engagement with our suppliers and all. And by doing this, we actually promote ourselves, attract the investors, because we are having a better company that implement all these sustainable practices, and at the same time become a socially responsible company to our employees. So I think those sum up some of the advantage, trade-offs to maybe if we need to invest, if we incur some of this financial investment. Yep.
All right, thanks, Ms. Aiman. I think I kind of like the fact that you highlighted a lot of the non-economic benefits or earnings from this as well, like reputation as well as resiliency and things like that. I think that's very good. Thank you very much for that. Since we are having you on board right now, I'll follow up with another question because it's related to sustainable technologies, and also since you're also involved in operations as well. So there's a question here about carbon capture versus methane capture in the palm oil industry. We see a lot of methane capture being implemented in the palm oil industry. But of course, well, we say methane capture, but it's actually biogas capture, right? Biogas is, of course, there's impurities and then methane as well inside. Which one do you think the industry prioritizes, between carbon capture and methane capture, and why do you think that's the case?
Okay, thank you. It is not actually really my expertise, but I try my best to answer from my own point of view. Okay, I see these technologies, carbon captures and also methane capture, as the technologies that directly capture emission at source, and I believe it would depend on the source of emission. Different type of industries may want to prioritize their preference. For example, landfill, livestock and palm oil mill may prioritize on methane capture, while cement industries and manufacturing industries may prioritize on carbon capture. So and carbon storing, but maybe oil and gas, they would do both because these are carbon dioxide and also methane, the main source of emission. Based on my understanding, methane is less abundant in the atmosphere and stay relatively shorter period, maybe 1 or 2 decades compared to carbon dioxide, which can stay there at centuries level. But sources says that methane traps 80 times higher heat compared with carbon dioxide. So and definitely this will drive a near-term warming. So it is important to actually tackle both, but I believe it is up back to the industry itself to identify which type of captures carbon or methane that is more based on their appetite and based on their preference and based on the most effective ways for them to actually tackle their action. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. Well, I guess also particularly because the industry does prioritize methane capture because of the fact that it has energy value as well, right?
Yeah,
So, you know, you're improving sustainability, but at the same time, you can capture methane and then use that to generate electricity for, you know, internal use and also for, you know, fitting to the grid depending on the situation and the scenario as well. So certainly, I think that there's higher gains with the methane capture, and carbon capture perhaps is like a further downstream application in that sense. And that brings me to the next point over here. There's another question here about bioenergy in general. So this perhaps we can get Dr. Zainab to weigh in as well. But let's see. So we have about bioenergy. Do the byproducts of bioenergy combustion release carbon dioxide or any other emissions? And if so, would we continue to develop bioenergy? So what's your view on that, Dr. Zainab?
Okay, this is perhaps a good question, yeah, because we need to decide whether we want to go into bioenergy or not, yeah, because of the carbon dioxide emissions. But I think yes, bioenergy production, combustion, yeah, actually release carbon dioxide. And a question on whether we need to continue to develop bioenergy, the answer is yes. We need to continue to develop bioenergy. And considering the circular economy concept, yeah, there is actually technology available to capture the carbon dioxide and to be used as more value added, like what Vit was saying just now. It can go into more advanced application of carbon, yeah, from the carbon dioxide released by the bioenergy. So we need to look at the holistic circular economy in order for us to reduce the emissions, yeah, not to just discontinue developing bioenergy, because bioenergy is very important, yeah. This is actually the direction that we are going. So there is no turning back, yeah. And I think we need to think of a way we can value add carbon dioxide into more carbon advanced carbon material in the future. So that's my comment. Thank you, Vit.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Zainab. Mr. Tan, you want to go ahead? I think I see Aiman, Miss Aiman as well. So we'll start with Mr. Tan first, then Miss Aiman, you can come in as well. So Mr. Tan, go ahead.
No, just to add some point at this call. Yeah, the bioenergy talking about, when you talk about energy, you talk about replacement of fossil fuel. Okay, because as you know, fossil fuel is always stored in the ground, but we need the fossil fuel because we need the energy. So extract it out of the ground, it becomes a CO2 released in the air. So scientifically, if you bioenergy, it means you get something like biomass. Okay, there is in the ecosystem itself is a, you can say circular economy, but I say it's a circular in terms of the carbon. Okay, so tree grow, okay, they absorb carbon dioxide, you use it to burn, carbon dioxide release, it becomes circular. So it doesn't add a net. I mean, yes, I mean, we talk about how they produce. Yeah, you have transportation with the fossil fuel, everything. But if you look generally, bioenergy is the one that is going to keep, okay, maintain the CO2 value instead of increasing it. But fossil fuel is increasing as you extract out from the land. Okay? So it is general. But yes, some people, I know some people of debating, is it biomass not really feasible? Okay, yeah, because of how you produce, transfer energy to production is another discussion. But in general terms, okay, when we look at climate change, we want to reduce the CO2 in the air as much as possible. So how there's two ways. One, if you start adding into the air, adding CO2 into the air, which normally come from fossil fuel, okay, it's more. Then now you try to reduce it by carbon capture. Okay, so just like carbon capture is talking about you capture the carbon of the process, everything, and you store it. Okay, just now I say biomethane. Okay, methane capture is talking about in scientifically talking about try to reduce, because they say that methane is equivalent to 25. Okay, 1 kg of methane equivalent to 25 kg of CO2 equivalent. So by burning the methane or flaring the methane, you reduce the potential carbon on the air. This is how they used to calculate so-called GHG emissions. That's why a lot of suggestions talking about have methane flaring facility at the palm oil mill so that they can prove they reduce the GHG emission. This is how we do it. Yeah. So it is a bit of addition from my side. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Tan. Ms. Simon, go ahead.
Maybe very quickly. Okay. At the combustion level itself. Okay. At emission. Yes. As what Dr. Zainab says that bioenergy, for example, my area is on biodiesel, so I give biodiesel as an example for one type of bioenergy, right? So for example, biodiesel still release carbon dioxide, but it actually have a more complete combustion comparing with petroleum fuel. So in terms of emission, it will it will have a cleaner burning due to complete combustion, and will have less gases, pollutants such as carbon monoxide and SOx and sulfur dioxide and all those gases pollutions. But more importantly is that the life cycle GHG emission, as mentioned by Mr. Tan, for bioenergy or biodiesel that is analyzed from the source to its application, have low emission versus petroleum fuel. For example, the palm-based waste biodiesel have more than 70% lower life cycle GHG emission versus conventional diesel. So it become one of a greener alternative as part of the all these renewable energy options that we have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Simon. I think I would like to just like pull everything in together over here. One thing we need to take note, I think, for the audience over here is that when it comes to emissions coming from bioenergy, let's just say, for example, we take biomass and we combust that for energy, we get CO2, yes. But under the emission scopes by the UNFCCC, I have to get the C's correct. What is that? Assessment. Emissions from bioenergy is not considered under the scope of emissions, because based on the scientific understanding is that when you have emissions from bioenergy, like CO2, that is that same CO2 used to replant that crops or the bioenergy source. So it's like circular economy, as what Dr. Zainab mentioned earlier. And at the same time, you know, this is what we call carbon neutrality in that sense. So the emissions is considered to be very minimal or low to a certain extent. So that is not factored as emissions under the UNFCCC assessment over there. So that brings me to the next point, which some of our speakers have highlighted about carbon capture. We can capture the CO2 anyway, which is not a problem. You know, by doing that, you actually achieve something called negative emissions. So this is something that also many people are looking and studying as well. So not only are you, removing the CO2 that is being released, but you're also taking off and, it's negative emissions accordingly as well. All right. And we have a question here. I think it was one of the top ones, if we don't mind scrolling up. I think it was about bioenergy being less preferred. Is it a myth? I think I saw that question over there. Well, maybe the question has passed by already. Never mind. It's okay. I will move on to another question over here. Perhaps now we can get Mr. Tan and also Benjamin involved in this question here. So we have a question here, starting, of course, it's directed to MPOCC. What about the MSPO for EU deforestation regulation, as EU ASEAN Business Council calls for acceptance of a RSPO scheme for palm oil exports? What's your view on that? And maybe Benjamin as well, later you can get your view involved from this from WWF's perspective as well. Yeah. Mr. Tan, go ahead.
Okay. For EUDR, the EUDR regulations, in MPOCC, we are aware of that, and we are putting quite a lot of effort and attention on this. For this one, the requirement talking about they don't want to have a commodity that is developed or planned on the forest area after 31st December 2020. This is one of the main requirements. Okay. And now we're talking about the traceability. They're asking for geolocation of each of the area that produce the commodity itself. So for MSPO here, what happens that coincident our new standard MSPO 2022, we have a cutoff date of 31st December 2019. So we have a delay of 1 year earlier than the EUDR requirement. But then it means what happens that going forward, we will not certify any land that is so-called developed on the forest area. Now, our definition of forest are not 100% like EUDR. We look at FAO. Our definition is looking at AFI, Accountability Framework Initiative. Okay, I think this we are quite similar to RSPO because RSPO is using HCS, high carbon source. Okay, so we have MPSPO and RSPO are facing this quite of so-called definition of forest. Okay, talking about EUDR. So yes, EU Asian Business Council call for us at the RSPO. Yes, this is the initiative. But from our side, it means the EU delegate did consult with the Malaysian government and Indonesian government talking about how Malaysia and Indonesia palm oil can so-called comply to EUDR regulation. So in the talk itself, we did mention about how MSPO and ISPO for Indonesia become the tools, okay, to help so-called traders and also buyers from EU, okay, to do their due diligence claim, okay, to comply to EUDR. So currently, what happens is that MPOCC are looking very thoroughly on all the requirements needed by EUDR, but at least the few main requirements to MSPO we can comply. Okay. Yes, we still need to enhance, especially talk about traceability, the geolocation. We can enhance it in our MSPO platform. Okay, but I think MSPO can so-called achieve that, okay, as we develop. Okay, this one was
thanks. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Tan. Mr. Benjamin, go ahead.
Thanks, Vic. I think we need to look at this from the EUDR perspective because EU wants to be flexible. They want to know that they have the opportunity to ensure that whatever is coming into EU has no deforestation linked towards it. And to be honest, I mean, you know, we are definitely pushing for certification scheme that what Tan is saying, MSPO needs to, can achieve this and so on and so forth, RSPO as well. But really, certification schemes are not the end-all answer towards sustainability. They're just a tool in a multi-toolbox process that needs to achieve sustainability. So it's fair to say that they do not accept or do not specifically recognize to a certain scheme, but I think it needs to be based on specific requirements in specific places. So that is where I think we need to sort of have a wider scope of understanding on what EUDR is trying to achieve and how we can achieve it. So yes, certification scheme, one of them, but also other tools like traceability, like what Tan is saying, the electronic traceabilities and so on. So smallholder inclusion, so landscape development as well, enhanced conservation approaches as well. All that needs to come into play when we look at the wider scheme of how we can achieve EUDR. And yeah, I guess that's where, I mean, I wouldn't drive for RSPO as well specifically because, you know, it's not a perfect scheme as well. Things are I say are always changing, whether it's in EUDR or whether it's in RSPO and so on.
Thanks, Mr. Benjamin. On that note, you mentioned the term multi-toolbox. We need to use a lot of different approaches together. So this ties into one question over here. I think we are aware that Bursa Malaysia is intending to set up a carbon trading market, or at least a scheme in that sense. like from your point of view, Mr. Benjamin, do you mind giving us your perspective, or how do you think this will help, or maybe not help the situation? Especially when you mentioned the point of, certification is just one element. It could be a combination of things that might help, improve the sustainability of the industry as well. What are your thoughts on this?
I couldn't say for sure, because carbon trading, it's a whole different box of of fun, and we don't know how that can actually relate to specific requirements within the EUDR, and whether Bursa Malaysia's specific approach can address the points that we need to address, whether it's from a sustainability point of view or whether it's from a deforestation point of view as well. So I mean, it's very difficult for us to say. I guess in a holistic context, yes, it is another tool that we can use, and then we can sort of saying that this is something that we're also applying, where conservation can be used as sort of a carbon offset approach. But yeah, it's difficult to tell for that, how it impacts it.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Benjamin, for your views on this. I think especially for the students listening in as well, you are all mostly from chemical engineering backgrounds. I think it's very important to understand the wider context of what we do, especially being engineers. We will, focus on the technology element, but you also have to understand about the emissions, how that impacts things in a wider scheme of things. So you can see we are talking about things like certification, related to emissions, the carbon pricing. All this has impact on technology and choice of technology, the way you operate and things like that, right? So hope that clarifies that, especially for the students who might be new to some of these concepts over here. All right, so I would like to direct this next question to Dr. Zainab now. Let me see if I still have this question here with me. Yeah, there's a question here about how would palm oil produced from naturally grown oil palm be compared to lab-made oils? I think we've heard this, news articles, being spread around about, some researchers from another country doing some synthetic palm oil or something like that, or some synthetic oils in the lab to replace palm oil. So what do you think, in your expertise and in your area, or even in your departments, what is your view on this? Like, how does it compare with all these synthetic or these lab-made oils?
All right. Okay. Very interesting question. Yeah, I've been receiving this kind of question in, I think, almost every talk that I presented. Okay, now to put this into perspective, yeah. Okay, synthetic palm oil, right? I think they have been, it has been marketed. The promotion has been done very aggressively, yeah. Putting up, all the promises which can actually, the synthetic one can actually give a high return of investment. But the question is, the other side of the story, yeah. Why do they need to imitate palm oil? Why don't they imitate soybean oil? Why don't they imitate sunflower oil? If they say that sunflower is a healthy oil, good oil for them, it means answering that question, it shows that palm oil is very important to them. Okay, now we are not going to stop them from producing synthetic palm oil, because for them it is an innovation. Yeah, whatever can actually help to raise their economic providing feedstock. But we have to think ahead. Why palm oil? Why they want to imitate palm oil? That means they want to reduce dependency on the natural palm oil. They produce synthetic palm oil. And producing synthetic, I'm not sure whether they realize or not, when you do synthetic, it's going to increase the emissions. And how are they going to manage the emissions? while we here producing natural palm oil, we have already taken into consideration all the possible sustainability compliance step. And we are almost there, all right? So I think all in all, natural palm oil is still the number one, yeah? Synthetic palm oil, there's still a long way to go. And I don't know. We don't want to have the same mistake that we make with rubber. All right. When natural rubber was replaced by synthetic rubber, so we are doing all the possible efforts in terms of R&D to actually sustain the natural palm oil. So yeah, I think I just leave the question. You know, why they want to imitate palm oil to the participant. Okay,
Alright.
that's all from me.
Thank you, Dr. Zana. I think the question is a very important question right there, and
Yeah.
thought-provoking question certainly. All right, and it's very clear as well. Like, why would they want to imitate it if it's bad, right, to begin with?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, exactly. So it doesn't compute in that sense. Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to another question over here. Let me see if I can get that. So just give me a moment. Just please bear with me a little bit. Some questions are getting a bit popular, so they're moving about a little bit. So let's see. Yeah, there's this one question about how can palm oil. I think this, I would like to invite all the speakers to weigh in. Maybe we'll start from Mr. Benjamin first, then slowly we'll get the rest to weigh in on this question. There's one question on demonstration, I think. Yeah, the one that we see in the middle over here. How can palm oil sustain with the various needs of the world, you know, despite having the rise of demonstrators and, you know, I guess protests as well, denying it in their countries due to many issues that might harm the environment. So we all have our understanding towards this, you know, this topic. It's a very controversial, contentious topic. So I'd like to get, you know, each of the panel's view on this. Starting from Mr. Benjamin, what do you think is the key pressing issue over here? And, you know, because we know that palm oil is important to sustain the needs for, you know, food security. But we have these demonstrations going on, and how do we manage that? And what do you think is the pressing issue over here?
Yeah, I know, it's so sad, right? I mean, being Malaysian, of course, I really support palm oil as a major driver of our economy. But we have to know for a fact that around the world, palm oil is viewed negatively in terms of perception, in terms of idealism. It's just seen as a bad crop, I think, overall. And it's very serious in a lot of countries, like, for example, France. There is places where they actually don't even want to know that palm oil is in their ingredients or anything that they have purchased. So it's a very serious situation, I can say. Just yesterday, I was in Singapore, and some of the financial institutions in Singapore also have sort of risk management for palm oil as well. Even though with all our sustainability practices in place, they are still viewing it as sort of negative context for their business as well. So it's a big problem, and I think it's here to stay for a long time. Although we are trying our best to improve our conditions, improve the situation, and say that you know, basically we are leading the way in terms of sustainability overall as well. But I think there has to be a balance at the end of the day, where we see palm oil as an ever-growing part of our economy, our culture. And I think as long as we hold true ourselves for that, so Malaysians making that an important point form for ourselves, I think that's good enough for us. I mean, I would really like to see Malaysian palm oil in everywhere, like in the nasi lemak stall, in the food court, everywhere, you know, have Malaysian palm oil sign there and saying that we are using Malaysian palm oil all the time. So I think that's something that we can take on ourselves first, to actually use palm oil and saying that it is a good product for ourselves and we want to see more of it. Then we'll tackle the rest of the noises that are coming in from Europe and China, things like that. So yeah, I would really love to see that in Malaysia first. And I think that's something that's always, you know, been on the top of my wish list for for palm oil in Malaysia to be driven as a Malaysian product and used widely and accepted widely in Malaysia as something that we are proud of.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Benjamin. Maybe we'll invite Mr. Tan to weigh in as well on this topic. Then we'll get Ms. Aiman as well, and then Dr. Zainab right after that. So, Mr. Tan, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the issue of perception of palm oil have been there for like decades. Okay, first they talk about the health issue, talking about the effect of palm oil on the health. Okay, then this is one of the long battle we have with them. I think MPOB is one of the central player that go against them, try to rectify, try to give many understand on the benefit of palm oil. Now after they go to the orang-utan case, now go to sustainability. It is something that is ongoing. I think participants here, if they are in palm oil industry, you know, okay, this has been going on decades. Okay, but until now, we still stand strong. Okay, and palm oil still needed in the EU or US or any part of the world, because palm oil is one of the most efficient oil, okay, for food. Okay, we are giving food security to the whole world. Okay, because we are so efficient that 1/9 of the area that we plant, we can cover other oil. Okay, something like that. So that's why I thought we already better hardened. I thought we have that mentality that no worry, they can try anything else. Okay? We will prove them, okay, that we are doing better. Yeah, you can ask anyone here which other oil that have good practice at us in terms of sustainability practices now. Okay? Because we are in under a so-called magnifying glass. They're looking at us every step we do, everything we did. Okay, we need to come up. Okay, scrutinize us. Okay? So from our side, from me, from CBH side, okay, we try to make it become. Okay, that's why MSPO are using the method of third party. Okay, we are using certification. Okay, so we have a proof that impartial of our result, our claim. Okay, so as time go on, we already built quite a strong, stable case that palm oil can be sustainable if you are growing them properly. Okay, I think this is what Benjamin has been trying to do also. As I try to say that, don't say no palm oil. Okay, instead support sustainable, okay, produce palm oil. Is a better way instead of saying no. So from my side, it is from MSPO. From time to time, okay, we will look at how the market trend going. This time we always have various stakeholder consultation. We try to enhance our standard, and also, but not just enhance standard, but also make sure it can be applicable in Malaysian context. Okay, so I think that's why I think this going quite not going to end. Is a long journey. Okay. So I think we should brace ourselves, okay, to go through all the things, because palm oil is important to our country. I think that's all. Thank you.
Right. Ms. Aiman, how about you? What's your view on this?
Yeah. Okay, maybe I talk about at industry level first. I think continuing what we do, the sustainable practices is very important. We have various initiatives tackling all these key focus area that may become their bullet points. Climate change, human rights, responsible sourcing, providing transparency is something that we do at industry level to avoid and to actually to move away from their perspective. So and to show to them that we are actually an industry that do all these sustainable practices. But I fully agree with Mr. Benjamin that as a Malaysian, we should always support the consumption of our palm oil. especially with our Asian cooking style. I believe palm oil is the best. And at agency level, of course, we have MPOCC to become our advocate and frontier, working with industries to always help filtering or help tackling away all this negative perception for palm oil. That's all from me.
All right, thanks, Ms. Aiman, on that. Especially on the cooking part. Yes, I use red palm oil for some of my cooking. If some of you don't know what red palm oil is, please go and check. Okay. All right. So anyway, finally, Dr. Zainab, your views on this?
Yeah, thank you, Wait. Actually, just to add on to what you were saying about red palm oil, I just take a tablespoon of drink a spoon of palm oil, red palm oil just now, a few minutes ago. Okay, now perhaps adding to all the inputs on the how can palm oil be sustained with all the anti-palm oil campaign going on around the world. Okay, I take it as a threat that can be converted into an opportunity. All right. Okay. If the EU and the US doesn't want to use palm oil and they put all the no palm oil in their products, now perhaps we can do the same thing. Why can't we work on something like putting the MSPO certified palm oil ingredient in the products that we produce in Malaysia? And at the same time, we can be proud that this is Malaysian palm oil and it's sustainable. So the other opportunity that I would like to mention here is that we have our participant here as the chemical engineers, and we do have a team of chemical engineers in MPOB. Yeah, I invite you to come and work together with us to develop a downstream or industry which focus on the value addition part. The value addition, what I mean in terms of the value addition here is that working towards eliminating processes that is not needed. Additional process, additional steps, that is actually adding cost to the production. And also when you add cost to the production, you will increase the price or you will increase the cost of production of certain products. So I welcome all the engineers, the chemical engineers, to come and collaborate with us in MPOB in terms of promoting the downstream activity or the downstream program, so that we can proudly use our MSPO certified palm oil in our food products or non-food products and label them as MSPO certified palm oil products. So, okay, now actually MPOB is, we stand proud of the three-pronged strategy that we have been practiced. Yeah? The first one is to create high income to the planters and growers. And the next one is also on the big issue is on the sustainable development. So we have several programs and projects, which is not the short sendiri kind of project. We have a committee doing assessment of our projects, looking at the proposals and also monitoring the projects. And also the third one is on the value addition. So these are the three-pronged strategy that stand guided all the research project that is carried out in MPOB. So please do come and work together with us to sustain the palm oil industry in Malaysia. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Zainab. On that note, I would like to take this opportunity to, wrap up the discussion forum today by saying just a few points, a little bit of a key recap of the points that we discussed today. We talked about, circular economy. We talked about, renewable energy initiatives. that the industry is doing. And this is where a lot of the chemical engineers or future chemical engineers that will go into the industry, can help with that as well, looking at how we can improve the efficiency, optimize the operations, optimize the integration of the technologies as well. And the wider context, like what we discussed things like emissions as a whole. How will that fit into certification? How will that fit into carbon pricing as well? Eventually, all these kind of factors are things that we discussed. Also, another thing we discussed is about plantation expansion and the limits behind that and how that will help in the big topic today, which is related to tackling climate change. At the end of the day, all this is related to the emissions and how those emissions impact climate change, right? Or cause climate change in this case. So what we have been discussing today is essentially what are the steps that have been taken in the industry, what are the areas that can improve further, and what are the challenges that are actually being faced by the industry from the bad negative press and the scrutiny, as Mr. Tan mentioning earlier, all these things as well. So we've covered a wide range of topics in a way, hopefully, that gives you a bird's eye view on what the industry is about and how you can play an important role in the future in the industry as well. So I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank all our wonderful speakers for giving their time today, for sharing their insights, starting with Dr. Zainab, and also then Mr. Benjamin, Mr. Tan, and also Ms. Aiman, for all your time and also for your valuable input and insights as well. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time to cover all the questions. We will find a way to get those questions answered, certainly, but thank you very much for putting across all those questions. Certainly, it shows that the event was a very eventful one, very popular indeed, many questions covering different angles as well, but all covering a very important topic about how the industry is looking at tackling climate change. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone in the audience for your time as well. So we'll just, I'd like to pass this over to the organizers, perhaps the MCs as well. Right, thank you very much.
We extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Zainab Idris, Mr. Benjamin Law, Mr. Tan Chi Yong, and Ms. Aiman Najati Akmal Rahman for sharing their valuable insight and expertise with us today. We would also like to express our sincere gratitude to Engineer Dr. Vignesh Andiapan, the chair of today's session.
Before we have our break, I humbly request for all the participants and our organizing communities to turn on your cameras as we are about to taking a photo session. I will be leaving the floor to Ashikin, our technical team, to take charge for the photo session.
Okay, thank you. So everyone, please be ready with your camera and open your camera. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, one more. Freestyle. 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Ashikin, for the beautiful picture. Before we have a lunch break, please fill in the attendance form session provided in the chat box, and you can also scan the QR on the slide. The attendance form for participants, we will provide it in the WhatsApp group. Now we will be having a lunch break. See you all soon at 2:45 p.m. Enjoy your meals. Thank you.
Yeah.